Hello friends, welcome to another session of IIB training by IIB Guru. This is Saif. So in this class, what we are going to talk about is we'll talk about database connection. How do we make database connection with a broker instance? So it would be divided into two classes. The first class I would talk about how do we make use of the command console to associate a DSN with a broker instance. So it would start like this. The first class would be creating a ODBC connection, configuring a ODBC resource, and then using that DSN, we make a connection to the broker instance. This would be class 1. And the class 2 would be making use of that DSN as a property in the compute node and making connection to a database, and then inserting or selecting or doing any kind of DML activity with a DB2 database. So without much ado, let's start on that. So first of all, what I would like to do is that I would like to share my screen. Okay, then this is my screen right now. Now here I will show you, as I promised, like this class, the first class would be on making use of the command console. So here it is, like command console. Again, I want to say I'm making use of IIB version 9. So first of all, see here you have IBM Integration Bus integration console. Okay, and then first before you go before you go or creation of or association of DSN to the broker instance, first of all you need to have a database which is existing. So I'm making use of DB2 database. First let me create a DB2 database quickly. I'm going to create a DB2 database. I'm going to off this command line processor, and then see, this is DB2. Okay, let me be a little bit slow. IBM DB2 command line processor, and I'm opening it as an administrator to get all the privileges, because an administrator is the one who would be eligible to create a database. So don't get confused, this is a DB2 command console and this is IIB command console. Okay, the only difference is the environment, because here when you open a DB2 command console, it sets the environment to run any kind of DB2 commands, and here in IIB console it creates an environment for IIB specific commands to run. And okay, let me minimize this IIB console. In the DB2 command console, let me create a database. The command to create a database is, okay, before creating, let me make sure that the database is active. Yeah, DB2 start is a command to make sure that the database is active or the database is running. And then you can go with a create statement. Let me keep everything capitals. Create DB, let's say DB sample. This is the database that I'm going to create. So it will take a little bit time to create the database, because it needs to internally run some scripts to create the database. So it's just not simple as it seems to be. Like create DB and database name, it will create a database with the default setting. So now defaultly, it will have a database with the restriction of what would be the size of the database, maximum size of the database, and everything which are needed to create a database. It would consider those things as the default settings, and it will create a database. So what I'm going to do next is that once the database is created, I will enter into the scope of the database by just connecting to the database, which is DB sample over here. So my next command would be connect to this database. DB sample. Okay, so and then I would create a table with a sample table, like let's suppose we have an employee table which will contain only 3 fields, like employee number, employee name, and employee location or employee city. These would be my fields, and this is just for example purpose. Okay, so it's creating a database. Okay, and then once the table is also created, I will try to insert a sample record, a single record inside the table, just to make sure that our database and table are working fine, and I'm able to do some DML commands on the existing table of the database DB sample. And then we will go to the command console of before going to the command console of IIB, I would like to create a ODBC connection. So this is a Windows system, so you can create a ODBC connection in order to make an interaction with any kind of database. Like ODBC is supported with like almost all the databases like DB2 or SQL Server, Informix, or Sybase, or Oracle. So almost all the leading database vendors, they support ODBC. And before this database starts, I also want to make a point that this is not the only way. ODBC is not the only way in which you can make a connection or run some SQL commands on the database from IIB's perspective. JDBC is also a way in which you can do that, and IIB supports JDBC also. So we will have a class on JDBC connection also. Okay, so the database is created. So what is the next step? As I told, we have to get into the scope of the database. So for that, we go with the command connect to DB sample, DB sample. Okay, now we are into the scope of the database. We got connected. Now create, let's take a sample table. Create table. The table name would be employee, and the field names would be e-number. E-number, let's make it as integer, and e-name, which will be a varchar type. Varchar, let's say 20. I hope that you all know like what's the difference between character and varchar. If some of them don't know what's the difference, then I will tell it. See, varchar is a dynamic allocation of the character, like of the character data. Like for example, if you go with character of 20, let's imagine you gave it as character of 20, and what would be the difference between character of 20 to varchar of 20? It might be any length. 20 is the length. So what happens is when you give a value for e-name, which is of like, let's suppose 15 characters, and the data type is character of 20, then the remaining 5 characters are wasted. I hope that you are understanding. For example, if I give this as character of 20, it still works for a character data type. But let's imagine if I give a value for e-name which is less than 20, like 16 or 17 or 18, then the remaining character spaces are wasted. Whereas if you go for a varchar, then what happens in the same case, if you consider, if you give an e-name of 15, then only 15 characters is allocated for ename. There's no wastage. That's the reason we make use of varchar. And let's say city, employee city, go for varchar again, varchar of 20, and then yeah, the SQL command completed successfully. This was a DDL command that I executed, data definition language, and then we'll go with the execution of a DML command, data manipulation language command, insert into table name, employee, and values. Sorry, insert into table name, and yeah, you can go with values. Let's say 101. Let's give it as IIB Guru, and let me give as California. Okay, so yeah, successfully created a database, made a connection to the database, and then created an employee table, and then inserted a record. Then let's run another DML command, select star from employee, and there you see there is a record. Okay, so successfully we have created a database. Now the next step is to create a ODBC source. So what I can do, I can go to the start and then type here ODBC, and you can get the data sources ODBC here. This is one way. Or you can go to the control panel and then make the icons as large icons and go to the administrative tools, and here you can select data sources. Okay, there are two ways. So I will select it here, data sources. And then there's user data source name, system data source name, file data source name. A lot of options are there. We'll go with the system data source name, because if you go only with user data source name and create a user DSN here, any other user logged in onto this system will not be able to get access to that particular DSN or make a DSN a proper DSN for IIB connection. So okay, we'll not go into that technical terms, just go to the system DSN and create, add, and what type of DSN you're going to create. The type, what I mean here is that you're going to create a DSN for a DB2 specific database, then you have to take the DB2 drivers into consideration. So when you install DB2 in your system, DB2 server, then you will have drivers also installed to that particular system where DB2 is installed, DB2 server. So this is how I got the driver here. So you choose this driver, IBM DB2 ODBC driver DB2 copy 1, and then finish. And then database alias, if you have created your database successfully, which I have done here, then that database would be shown in database alias. Just scroll down. So this is what DB sample, that's what I have created now. And data source name, it's better to keep this name as same. If you want, you can give some other data source name which is different from database alias, but if you give the same data source name, it's well and good. And you can give the description like this DSN is created to be connected to, or it's okay, it's the characters, you cannot accommodate so many characters, connected to, let's say IIB node. Let's give some description. And then if you want to test whether you'll be able to make a connection to this particular DSN, then you have to just go and test it. Just double click user ID and password, give your user ID and password. Here in this case, user ID is IIB Guru and password is again the same thing. Yes, connection tested successfully. It means through this ODBC adapter or ODBC data source, I am able to connect to the database by giving my system's user ID and password because I am an administrative user. So if you have created a DB2 admin user, when you are installing DB2 in your system, then you can use even DB2 user specific username and password also. So hope you understand this thing. Okay. And then what was the next step that I have promised you to tell for this class? The next step is how do you run the commands on the MQSI console to make a connection to this data source name. It's just like this. It's a simple understanding. See, for example, let's suppose you try to connect to a power socket, a power source in your home, and you have you have an appliance, electronic appliance, whose power cable does not have a compatibility with your power sources in your house. What you are going to do? The thing you are going to do first, the first thing which comes into your mind is you make use of an adapter. So in the same way, see, any kind of, like, for example, you write a code in C or C++ or C Sharp or Java or PHP, any language you want, you can write a code. You can write application specific code. But in databases, most of the relational databases that are existing now, they work with SQL. So SQL is the language which they use to be communicated with. So in order to have in order to interact with the databases, the applications which are developed in C or Java or any other language, they need to have an adapter that would change the the methods or the calls from the programming language to the SQL. So that adapter is like ODBC or JDBC. So in simple terms, right now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to configure that adapter that we have created right now, ODBC adapter, to the IIB node instance. So how would we do that? So first of all, you have to open the command console. The best thing you can do is open the command console with administrative privileges. How do you do that? You go to the IBM Integration Bus and then open this with administrative privileges, run as administrator, and then it's ready right now. So the command which we are going to run is mqsi. First, let's create a broker instance. For that, the command is mqsi create broker. Broker name. Let's give, okay. Let me check. Sorry for this. Let me check what are the brokers that are present. Broker instances mqsi list. MQSI list will give you all the brokers associated with the queue manager and the state, whether they are running or not. Okay, the queue manager IB9 QMGR is running, on top of which IB9 node is the broker. Okay, I already have a broker. Let me configure the ODBC adapter to this node. So how do I do that? The first command is, if you want to write it down, it's very important. MQSI set db parms. MQSI set db params. The broker name here is IB9 node -n flag, and the name of the DSN. If you remember, the name of the DSN is db sample -u, the user ID with which you can connect to the database. See, this is the user ID with which you can connect to the database. You have to remember one thing. This is not the user ID that is eligible to like create a broker instance, or that is eligible to start a broker instance. This is not that user ID. This user ID is the user ID which is eligible to get connected to the database. So in my case, it is user ID of my system, and the password is the same. Okay, yes, the command, successful command completion. You can see the BIP code 8071I, successful command completion, but this does not give an assurance that that the ODBC source, that the DSN data source name is successfully associated with the broker instance. What we have to do, the subsequent command is mqsi reload IB9 node. This is to reload the configurations of the IB9 node. It's going to take the new configurational changes that you have made into consideration now, and then mqsi cvp IB9 node. So this command is going to make sure that this command is run to make it sure that the connection is made successfully. If it gives you an error, then the connection is not made. If it gives you all the parameters, then it's like it has made the connection successfully. So okay, so hold a second. I did not give the commands completely. It's mqsi cvp, the node name minus n, the DSN name. You have to give the DSN name. Yes, now you see it gives us a list of parameters, which itself signifies that there is a connection made. If you want, you can read. If you have time, you can say, you can read connected to data source DB sample. So what I am saying is that only running mqsi set DB PAMs does not guarantee that the connection is already made. That connection will be made, but how? Only when you check it. So to check whether the connection is made or not, you have to run mqsi cvp. Okay, so there are only three commands: mqsi set DB PAMs, and mqsi reload, and then mqsi cvp. Okay, hope that you have written this thing. So now the connection is made, and then in the subsequent class we will see how to make use of this DSN name in a message flow and get connected to a database and execute some SQL queries. Either it may be a DML or any complex stored procedures. Hope that you understand this class. Please leave your comments, and if you like this class, please like it and leave the comment and subscribe. Okay, thank you for now. Bye.